But the key thing, though, in those circumstances is that we are more apt to push something that has a recurring release schedule to it, because one of the most important things is we want people coming back to the store.
Consistency. Give them a reason to come back in.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Highs to approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challenges do. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. It gets hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
W. Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Dal.
Dal.
W. Dal Bush.
Welcome back to Contest of Challengers. Dal, how are you?
Good, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for asking.
You're very welcome.
So I was going to start this very specific episode number 706.
This is very specific.
With a little story from a customer interaction from this weekend, specifically Saturday.
Who's ready for story time with Patrick Brower, baby?
Baby. And this is honestly I'm surprised this type of situation doesn't happen more often.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to wonder what you would do, not you, the listener. I mean, not you, Dal. I mean, the listener would do in this situation. So we're selling framed prints. We've been doing that for a while. They've been this weird stucco patterned comic cover reproduction that we used to get from
Pyramid America.
Pyramid America, thanks. I knew it wasn't Attaboy, and I knew it wasn't Poster Emporium. But then we've upgraded to some other different Marvel and DC prints, and they're in frames, not glass frames, plastic frames. I mean, frames are wood. The surface that protects the image is plastic.
Acrylic,
Yeah, not glass, which, thank God it's not glass. And we sell them for $35. They are all around the store. In fact, they have taken the place of all of the Challengers Rogues Gallery art prints, where those used to go along the wall of the regular comics.
The 32 feet of comics that we have on
and because those prints have been up there for a decade.
Yeah, more than.
And we're proud of those prints, and those prints were done just for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we did some rearranging back when we were getting the ducts cleaned, and put all these prints up for sale. And then we have a bunch of extra ones that aren't on the wall where we keep the other prints, where we keep the window prints, Tom Kelly's Hello Kitties.
Yep.
And they're on a shelf. They're on two shelves that are about, 5 feet high. Those red shelves are 6 feet tall, right?
I think so.
So they go up a little over 6 feet, but they're easily grabbable. And on occasion, not often, but far too often than you would like to have happen, people drop them, people knock them off the shelves.
Yep.
Now, normally, those frames are a little resilient. Some of them get a little dinged up. But if the frame is salvageable, we let it go. There was one that completely separated at the seams, but it didn't break so much. Like it could be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
So I repaired it. But this past Saturday, somebody knocked a frame off and it completely broke. The wood itself came off in a couple of pieces. It's just broken.
Yeah.
So, Dal, let me ask you this. If you're in a store and you knock something off of a shelf and you break it, what do you do?
Patrick, I believe the expression I was always raised with was, you break it, you bought it.
So what if nobody sees you do it?
I would probably still go to find somebody to say, hi, can I pay for this? And then leave it up to them as to whether or not I need to pay for it or not pay for it.
I'm glad you didn't say. I would go up to somebody and say, someone broke this. So, heard it fall, looked over, saw the person standing over the broken frame, immediately sent Andrew out to deal with it.
Right.
That's what he's there for. Let's be honest. So Andrew brings it up, and it's broken.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew said, he said he'll pay for it. Great, no problem. So the person comes up, and is buying a single comic.
Mm-hmm.
So we ring up the frame. You know, they're $35 for the frame.
Right.
And in the meantime, I was trying to put it together as nicely as possible for them to take it back. But I mean, it was fucked.
Right.
So he sees it total. He goes, "What? Wait, you're charging me for that?" And I said, "You weren't expecting to pay for it?" "Well, I mean, I was going to give you a couple of bucks for it." I'm like, "Look, it's broken. It's completely broken."
Mm-hmm. It was $35 and you broke it. Your suggestion was to just throw a couple bucks at us.
We don't have spare frames or anything. Like, we could probably salvage the print, but we're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. You broke it." And he looked at me and he said, kind of bewildered, and I don't understand this. He said, "Look, I'm trying to do the right thing here." No, the right thing is to pay for the thing you broke.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, I feel bad enforcing it, but I also feel bad not being able to sell a product that I paid money for.
Yes. That, through no fault of your own, Patrick, was destroyed in your store.
Yeah. And it wasn't like he knocked into it. He was looking through the frames and dropped one.
Yeah. He broke it. He
Yeah.
broke it.
So then he's like, "You know what? Fine." And in my head, and I explained this to Andrew afterwards, in my head, I'm like, if I make him buy this, he's never coming back to this store.
Never. Yeah.
But he also may never come back because he's embarrassed.
Less so, but sure.
But I mean, it's possible.
Sure.
Or because I even brought it up, even if I say, "Hey, don't worry about it."
Yeah, at this point, that ship has sailed.
Right. So I'm at least going to get the $35 for that print.
Sure.
And then I try to put it in a bag, and it's just separating. So I move it to the side counter, you know, where people first come in.
Right.
And he finished the transaction. He goes, "Hey, oh, now you're not going to give it to me?" I'm like, "What? I mean, I paid for that. I'm going to take it." I'm like, "Yeah, I put it right over there on the side counter to make it easier for you to get." I literally put it right by the door so you can grab it on the way out.
Just
so you don't have to.
Looking for something to feel superior about.
Yeah.
And then they were going to rip me off and not even give it to me. Like, no.
And if I was in his shoes, I would feel terrible. I'd be like, "Well, I didn't want to buy this."
Yeah.
But
I don't think I would take a broken frame or anything. I'd just be like, "Yeah, I got to pay for that. I broke it."
Well, the good news is the print was undamaged, so you can just buy a new frame.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. And if you didn't want that print, why were you handling it?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing's just a bad situation.
Right. So I immediately tried to thin out some of the stuff on that shelf, move things around so there's more space in between.
So it's less likely to have someone drop it again.
But that just makes bigger piles.
Yeah.
It's
not great.
No, it's not. But I just couldn't, the whole, I'm just trying to do the right thing here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, though.
No.
You're trying to not do the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, throwing $2 is just condescending. Just saying like, well, I know what it cost, but this will assuage my guilt and make me feel like I've made things right. So if you don't feel that way, that's on you.
And I mean, maybe we could have been like, "Oh, we'll give it to you at cost. So, you know, you don't have to have a broken thing and we don't lose anything." No.
Yeah.
Also, if there would have been, well, again, I thought he'd already said he was going to pay for it, which in his mind probably just meant a couple of bucks. But if there was any contrition or,
right,
you know, any type of, apologies is the wrong word, but like you didn't seem to feel bad about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm the villain because I need you to pay for a thing that you broke.
Right.
And, you know, we're lucky. We're in a situation where things don't get broken that often, but we've had kids manhandle a book and those parents buy those books.
Sure.
Oftentimes the parent themselves will say, "Hey, my kid bet this. We're going to buy it."
Yeah.
Which, great. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it is the right thing to do.
Right. But when is the right thing to do the thing that's actually done?
Not as often as we'd like.
Sure. And I still feel awkward about the whole situation because I didn't want to be put in a position to have to demand somebody pay for a thing they broke.
Mm-hmm.
But they broke it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, will they come back and will I recognize them?
Probably not, and probably not.
I have an image in my head of who it is, but I could be conflating that with a more of a regular, not a club member, not a subscriber.
Yeah, we just this past Wednesday we had a customer come in and they chopped around for a little bit and came up to the counter with a stack of new books, and I immediately recognized them as a former subscriber that had completely ghosted us on 2 to 2.5 months worth of books.
Do you know how long ago that was?
I want to say it was probably like a year ago.
Okay, so not necessarily in 2024, but
not recently.
5 years ago.
Right. It was somebody who had like joined the subscription service late part of the pandemic.
Okay.
And was there for a little while. Would sometimes bring friends in and have conversations about comics with them, and they'd get some stuff. And they were in fairly regularly. I'd say about 2 to 3 times a month.
So somebody who knows how it works.
Right. And just suddenly wasn't coming in for their books and didn't respond to emails. And I don't know if we had a phone number, but just never came in, never did anything. And then they pop back in again. So I didn't call them out on it, but I did like, wow, hey, it's been a long time, letting them know that I recognize them.
Yeah.
And I knew they shopped here before. And let them wonder whether or not I remembered that they had burned us on a whole bunch of books.
I'm willing to bet in those situations that they don't even think of it as burning us.
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah. So I don't think...
What some people have done recently as a result of Managed Comics is that they'll start their subscription online. They'll go to Managed Comics, they'll add a bunch of books to their list. And then what they'll do is they'll end up removing all the books from their list. And that's them closing their account. But it's like, okay, A, stuff that's already come in before you did that.
Yeah.
B, books that you ordered that haven't hit their cutoff date that you're still going to be getting in, even though you deleted them today. We're still going to have 3 to 4 weeks, if not more, of books coming in for you. And so then that becomes the stuff where it's like they thought they closed their account. You didn't. You're still getting emails saying you're getting stuff in, but you don't read those emails. You immediately delete them or they go to your spam folder. The amount of people recently I've talked to who are like, oh, for some reason it goes to my spam folder, as though that's something we can control on our end.
Right.
That's your mailbox, man. You need to figure that out. You need to figure out why it's going to your spam folder and maybe tell your email inbox, don't send these to the spam folder. That is a fixable problem. But
also,
anyway,
it's not as if putting not
problem.
spam in a headline works.
Yeah.
Because it still goes right to spam.
Yeah. I can't choose whether or not my emails go to your spam folder or not. And yet the number of people who use that as not even a, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that it was in my spam folder, but yeah, for some reason it goes to my spam folder.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Like, oh, let me get my IT department on that. No, it's an email that went to your spam folder. You can fix that.
What about hey, are my books in yet? We've emailed you about these.
You know why I went to your spam folder? Because you never open our emails. And you frequently delete them before even reading them. And that tells your inbox, oh, these are spam. That's where they're going to start going. If you started opening the emails, they would not go to your spam folder. That's pretty much how it works. Anyway.
We recently had a business associate who was subscribed to a few books in our system who no longer needed to be subscribed to those books and emailed and said, hey, I just wanted to thank you for letting me get these books. I've taken them off my list, so we don't need them anymore. And I went and double checked. I'm like, no, they're still there. So I cleared them out on the back end.
They might have been, did you see them in the column? Did they say final pull yes?
I didn't even look.
Okay, because that would be where it would be if they remove them from their list, but there's still an issue yet to come out. It'll say final pull yes, which means they'll get one more and then it'll be inactive.
One of them was a one-shot that we copied over.
Okay.
And FOC hadn't closed yet.
Okay.
So I don't know if they missed it, but if they delete that before FOC, it should go away.
It should. There was a conversation with Brian from Managed Comics a little while ago that basically said that while that's the way it should work and the way that Managed Comics has said it works, sometimes that's not how it works. The system just tacks on one more issue and then calls it a day. So I don't know if that's exactly how it's working anymore. I don't know if that's something that Managed Comics has patched out or if they're working on or is just something that will have to wait until larger changes inevitably happen to Managed Comics.
Speaking of Brian from Managed Comics, after last week's episode where I was talking about using the website League of Comic Book Geeks to find future shipping books and how that had made a mistake with Batman Full Moon, also made a mistake this week with
Day of the Dead Girl.
Day of the Dead Girl.
Yep.
By a couple weeks even.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, so that, real quick parenthetical, I don't know that it's not shipping on a different week from Diamond than it is from Lunar. We get Magma from Lunar,
Yeah.
and Lunar said the 23rd. Maybe earlier from Diamond. I don't know. That used to happen with AWA books.
Yeah.
Where Diamond would have it like a week to 2 weeks before Lunar would ship it out. Moot point now because AWA doesn't seem to publish anything, but whatever.
Yeah. So Brian had texted me on Sunday to say, hey, I heard that you were talking about trying to find a website that has upcoming releases. Have you tried this website? And gave me a link to challengerscomics.com because you can set release dates through Manage Comics. And I thought, I rarely use Manage Comics from the front end. I'm usually using it from the back end.
So there's a couple things that I've noticed recently because when I was putting together the subscription service FAQ for our
website.
Well, no, I was going to say for our Manage Comics customers, people who manage their subscriptions through Manage Comics. I had to kind of play around with it from the customer
point of view, yeah.
Because usually if I want to subscribe to anything, I just go in through the admin side, add it, we're done.
Right.
So there were things where I'm like, and this has happened recently as well when people had called out some slight errors or things that weren't making sense to them, and I'd have to kind of go in and troubleshoot it. One of the things originally that I found really frustrating about Manage Comics was that if I wanted to like look through the new catalog, and I go to the DC Comics section, it would have everything for like the next 3 months, and it was like, this is impossible for me to navigate. It's all stuff that like hasn't closed orders yet, but I just want to see the new stuff. And then I found out that Manage Comics already has that, and when you go to the landing page and there's the little graphic of like the new catalogs, you click that, and that's the list of everything that's just from the new catalog.
Yeah, I actually knew that.
Yeah, and I didn't. And so it was a thing where, because I think a customer had recently complained that things weren't coming up right. I'm like, wait, what? So I went, oh, yeah, here, yes, here, no. And I didn't realize there were two different ways to do it, because I would always do it the one way where it worked, and now the other way where it didn't. So then I had to walk them through that. But that was me learning, like, oh, this thing that I thought was a huge deficiency in Managed Comics was actually like there the whole time, and I didn't see it. This is a thing, Patrick, that I'm going to mention out loud.
Sure.
Not because I want to make more work for Brian at Managed Comics or any of his team.
This is just part of your Managed Comics vision board?
God knows Taras needs the as many vacations as he can possibly get. The hardest working person in comic subscription management programming. And I mean that seriously. I know that I'm saying that in a way that makes it sound like I'm disingenuous, but I genuinely do mean it. Taras does great work for Managed Comics.
I can't tell if you are taking away credit from Brian.
I think Brian understands how much credit Taras deserves in the Managed Comics scheme of things. No, here's what I would love, and it was something that somebody had recently mentioned to us, and it's a stumbling block that happens fairly regularly, and it's a thing that I'm genuinely considering paying for out of pocket, because I think it would be a huge benefit to our store.
A shake machine.
No.
That's right, I am lactose intolerant.
That would be a huge detriment to our store, because we would both be dead within a quarter. No. So currently, when you're searching for something on our website, there's two different places you'll do it. If the main search bar for the store will surface things that are just in our database, stuff
things that we are selling, things that we
carried
have on the shelf, things that you can
buy.
But
it doesn't include any future dated stuff that you would normally subscribe to through Managed Comics. Conversely, when you're looking for stuff in Managed Comics, it will only have stuff that we haven't received yet, nothing that we already currently have on the shelf. It's two completely different databases that you're searching in that surface two completely different things. What I kind of want to do is reach out to a programmer and say, is there some way that we could have one search bar that looks in two different things? Whatever message you're sending when you search in the Managed Comics search bar, whatever coding is in Shopify that's making that happen.
So it'll know which database to look into?
Well, that it would search both, basically.
Okay.
So it would say, like, if you search for Amazing Spider-Man, it would not only say, like, well, here's the Amazing Spider-Man comics that are in the storefront, but also here's the stuff in Managed Comics that also matches Amazing Spider-Man. So that in one search bar, you could be like, oh no, I wanted to pre-order this upcoming Spider-Man comic, but I didn't know it was upcoming. Or I wanted to get this Spider-Man comic that came out last month, but I didn't know what came out last month.
Is there a risk of it surfacing backlist stuff and like all the in-stock trades, or anything that's in a regular previews catalog?
I don't know, maybe. This isn't something I know. I don't know if this is even technically possible
Sure.
to have one search engine that is looking both within the Shopify database and the Managed Comics database. I don't know if that's technically possible.
So we did have.
So if Brian wants to get back to me, and I'm not asking Managed Comics to do this, I'm asking if it's even technically possible, and if so, like basically, does the API for stuff like Managed Comics allow for something like this to happen, or is it closed off within Managed Comics where that could not be patched into a, like if I reached out to the people that do our search bar for Shopify, could they code that in if I paid them to do it, or is it technically not even possible?
All I know is Brian is just trying to listen to this podcast for some light entertainment, and you're constantly making him take notes.
Here's what I'm
Reach
seeing
out
right
to
now.
you.
I'm seeing an autumn Canadian afternoon.
It's his son's birthday today, and you're doing this.
Brian
Granted, he won't hear this.
walking
today.
his dog with his headphones on, listening to this, getting to this point, and having to stop walking his dog to bend over 45 degrees at the waist and place both of his hands on his knees
while sighing loudly.
while exhaling in a very measured way to restrain his blood pressure as his brain tries to process what I'm saying on a podcast, completely ambushing him on a Sunday afternoon in Canada. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about this
That's
week.
about right. I mean, Managed Comics has already, due to user suggestion, changed the verbiage in the second search bar, so it says subscription search or something like that.
Sure, but you only find that if you go to the Managed Comics tab on our site.
Yeah.
Like you don't see that. That's not on our main page anywhere. That's just
Well, nor should
although,
it be because it's not in the
honestly,
subscription.
that's the thing. Maybe it should. Like that's the thing that would also maybe be a thing that I don't even know if that's possible to have something on our
So the two
Our
search
menu
bars
bar.
are like one on top of the other. One says web store search, the other says subscription search.
I would probably just put in stock search and subscription search. But again, like that would be, I don't know if that's possible. And I would certainly prefer to just have one unified search bar that is searching two different databases and saying, well, here's what's in each one. But again, I don't know if that's even possible. So if Brian wants to get back to me with a simple, yes, that's possible, or no, that's not possible. And if yes, it's possible, I can then reach out to our search bar people and say, hi, this is the project. What would you quote it at? And figure out if that's even feasible. Because we've had stuff with some of the app developers that we've used for Shopify where we've gone to them and say, hey, this is the thing we're trying to do with your app, and it doesn't seem like it does that. Am I doing it wrong, or does it not do that? And they've come back and said, it doesn't do that. Can you give us like a week and a half and we can make it do that? And I said, yes, thank you. So like there have been times where we've honestly gotten core functionality introduced to apps that we use for free because they're like, we can see the value in us being able to do this for other clients. So we're just going to do it. And you're already paying for it every month, and we're just going to roll that in.
I kind of do hate the amount of products that the Shopify product search function gives. For example, this morning I was looking up Nothing Special Volume 2, which is coming out in 2 weeks. And I wanted to see how we had... I was looking up Nothing Special Volume 1 because I wanted to see how we tagged it.
Yeah.
Because it's listed as manga from the PRH website.
Oh, right.
Which it is not.
It's
Well, it
not.
says manga and graphic novels.
Right. It's
So I think
not,
they
though.
just lumped those.
I think we put it in young adult. for the record.
We do. But I was looking it up to double check.
Sure.
And typing in Nothing Special Volume 1 brought up multiple pages of results.
Yes.
And it was on the lower quadrant of the second page.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it prioritizes things that are in a description rather than in a title is bonkers to me. One of the other things, real quick, to give Brian even more shit to deal with. One of the things that would honestly help us substantially with how our website runs and, more importantly, costs,
People giving us bagfuls of cash.
is if Managed Comics items, when they're created, instead of using item tags for creators and other things that have attributes, if it used meta fields, because meta fields is the thing that's fairly baked in with Shopify. And here's the more important part. All of the things that we're paying like $125 a month for our search and filter fields to do is required because Shopify search doesn't really, you can't use tags really. Like it's not functional in that way. But it uses meta fields. So if we had a meta field for every book that said, a writer field, an artist field, a publisher field, a cover artist field, all the sort of stuff that Managed Comics has the data for, and it put them in the meta fields, that would mean we could get rid of the $130 a month we're paying for this filter and search thing, and could just use the core functionality that we're already paying for every month from Shopify.
Maybe that's something that's on the table for when the comment standard goes live and everybody now will follow a specific order, or
maybe.
Yeah, so maybe that's not worth doing until they can.
Because I could probably even, because it's tags and stuff, and that's just all CSV stuff, and the meta fields are a CSV field. In theory, I could reach out to a developer and say, hi, can you, from the CSV file that has all these items and all these creator tags, can you just automate the process that just pastes them into the correct meta field stuff? And that would immediately give that functionality for everything we have in our system. The problem is going forward, I would have to still do it for every single item we import into Shopify for Managed Comics, which is more work than I'm willing to do.
That is a colossal understatement.
Yeah, I mean, it's
based on the amount of products that we have.
It's like 100 plus items that we have every single week, so I'd have to do it every single week for all these things, and it would be like, I don't know that there would be an automated tool that would do it. I would probably just have to do it by hand after it was done.
What else do you have to do?
Pretty much. So that's another thing on my, Magic calls it my Managed Comics vision board. Meta fields instead of item tags would be so great.
This is the point where I would refer to the...
At this point, Brian Garside is in a fetal position on the sidewalk, holding his dog's leash.
He'd gotten up and had taken a few steps, and then you just knocked him right down again.
Uh-huh. Guy's just trying to walk his goddamn dog, you know? He didn't ask for this. He didn't ask for this life.
So when we built the podcastatorium, we brought the whiteboard with us, the old episode whiteboard, but we never use it.
No,
but
because we're not even facing it.
For show notes. What it is, it's covered with Dal's Managed Comics vision board wish list, so much so that we've had to add 2 full whiteboards underneath it because the list keeps growing.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff.
It would help if you didn't draw pictures after each one, but it's your vision board, man. You do you.
Only some of them are pornographic. I just wanted, for people who are thinking that the pictures are all pornographic, only some of them.
So, Dal, we've been talking for 27 minutes.
Who's counting?
About the app. The app is counting. About the way a comic store functions. And my question to you is...
we're talking about? But go on.
My question to you is, why are you participating? You do not know...
I don't understand.
You don't know what a comic shop is for.
I don't.
You don't know what comics are about.
I don't.
So really, why are people even listening to you?
It's true.
Me, I understand.
We've had, certainly as a comic shop in Chicago, we've had a few people come in on a regular basis, not daily, but semi-regularly, who are not really in a state to be out in the public.
They garner a little more attention, necessary attention from us. Sometimes people will walk in, immediately grab something from a shelf and run.
So that happened earlier this week. That was it was Tuesday. I think it was late Tuesday. It was a Monday or Tuesday because it was Molly Jane Day. Because basically, a guy walks in the store, turns already kind of has that the gait of somebody who is not 100% interacting with the world in the way that everybody else is. So turns left, goes right into Sidekicks. I watch him because Molly Jane is in the back room and she's got the door open and he's walking so quickly that I'm like, I think he's going for the back room and she's back there and I don't know what's going on.
She's in the back room of Sidekicks.
Back room of Sidekicks. Okay. Yes. So he turns left into Sidekicks. I watch him go into Sidekicks because I know Molly Jane's back there and I'm concerned about the way he's very quickly walking towards the wall of Sidekicks. And I'm like, if he goes into the back room, she's there and I don't want to this is a problem. He goes to the wall of the pops, picks up a pop, puts it under his arm, and starts walking back into the store. This is the part that was great. Another guy was in the store and is looking at his phone and is about to head out the front door.
So he blocked him.
So the guy with the pop kind of has to stand there for a minute, and he's sort of like standing there. I'm like, hey, you ready to buy that? I can take that up to the front counter for you. And the guy puts it on top of the Coke cooler, which is to the left of the door that another guy is currently standing in front of and is like now aware that a conversation is happening around him. And the guy who had picked up the pop just starts doing this, heh, 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 heh. And then he sort of like slowly gets around the guy who's in front of the door and then opens the door and walks out. And then I take the pop vinyl and I go behind the counter. And the guy on the phone realizes the door is open now. He's like, okay, and goes to leave. I'm like, hey, have a great day. And so I'm telling Molly the story of what just happened because she's come out of Sidekicks by this point.
Yeah.
Explaining that this guy just stopped a guy from walking out with a pop vinyl. And then the guy who was on the phone who was blocking the door comes back in and goes, hey, was that guy going to take that out the door? I'm like, yes, he absolutely was. And thank you for blocking him. And the guy's like, wow, I'm like, people do it all the time in the city. It's kind of an epidemic right now. People just walking into stores, grabbing stuff and walking out the door. He's like, yeah, I tried to walk after him, but like he was going kind of fast. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like there's nothing.
Don't endanger yourself.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
That's
and
what I'm here for.
I was gonna Molly get him. But here's like the dumbest part of it was that the pop he was going to take was like an Infinity Warps pop that we had like 6 of. So I'm like, even if he went out the door, it's like, I don't care a lot. Like, I would rather not lose any product, but this was valueless. This is basically nothing. But it was, yet again, like just a week or two after we had a guy walked right up to the card game section, which is like 10 feet from the door. Molly Jane is at the side counter facing the front door, pulling club. The guy grabs a Lorcana starter set and like some Pokemon thing.
A Pokemon box.
Yeah. And then
not a box of boosters or not a deck, but just like
without saying a word, takes them, turns, and starts like striding towards the front door. Molly's like, hey, you have to pay for that. And he gets to the front door and he just starts running south on Western. And it's like, that's what's happening in Chicago all the time now.
I don't even, the people don't even know what they're taking.
Right. And that's the thing. Like the Lorcana thing was like, we got 6 of those. Like no one's grabbing anything because it's like they cased the joint or whatever. There's stores, we read about them all the time in ICV too, that get broken into and they steal $8,000 worth of Magic cards. And like, because they're in a glass case.
That's literally the next story I'm going to tell.
Oh.
And it's exactly $8,000 worth of Magic cards.
I remember it. I read it this morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're like, you give me a great segue, but we're not there yet.
But like that happens to a lot of stores where people will come in after hours. It's a B&E and they're stealing specific stuff, high value things, CGC books. But like frequently what we have is just, people who are it's just they're looking for an opportunity. So they're just going to grab the thing that's closest to the door and run out. Or they're going to go into the section where they think you can't see them. We can see you. We put cameras there. And try and stuff stuff in a bag or put stuff in their coat. And it's whatever is right there. Like they're not taking high value things that they can flip. They're just grabbing whatever they think they can get away with. And it's people who don't know anything about comics and don't know anything that's valuable. They're just grabbing stuff. And like, that's honestly maybe worse for me because like you can take the high value stuff and make sure it's in a place that people can't get it.
Sure.
But if people are just going to grab anything they can get their hands on, I don't want to be one of those bulletproof bodegas that has everything behind glass.
Right.
And like, I want people to be able to interact with the books, but like,
do you though?
Well, I want people to be able to shop for things that they want to buy and read. I don't want someone picking up a Powerpuff Girls comic and staring at it for 15 minutes, chuckling to themselves.
Not even like flipping pages.
I don't want that. That's the thing where I'm going to walk up to you and say, did you want to buy that or not want to buy that? And then be told that I don't know anything about comics and I don't know what comic shops are for.
You don't get it. You don't get like
comic shops are for people who are very high.
People want to
stare at a
interact
comic book
with the book and look at it, so they know if they want to come back and buy it
and chuckle at it, and in an unnerving way that I get concerned about the safety of the other customers in the store.
Yeah, this was a person who necessitated I was going to say following around the store.
Hey man, this is not the time for you to be in a store in the public.
But it was a lot of.
This is not the time for it, bud.
Let me straighten the racks directly next to you or right behind you.
Uh-huh.
And it went on for far too long.
Yep, that's what leads.
You had an errand to go run. You didn't want to leave the store.
Yeah, I did not want to leave you understaffed at that point. I wanted that guy to be out of the store, and then we could deal with the whatever else came afterwards. But anyway, Patrick.
Well, also we had later in the day on Wednesday, somebody came in, went right up to the counter where we have the all-in display where we have two different.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Two different stacks of all-in. Picked one up, went right to the door, and I'm like, hold on, that's not free. You got to pay for that. So I was right there watching him, and he's like, oh, it's not free? No. Oh.
Which is an
okay.
instance where I think he was confused.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that happen before. I've seen people, basically, they don't take it and walk out the door, but they're like, this is free, right? And it's like, no, it's not. And then you had to have a very long conversation with him about what exactly in the store was free.
Well, basically, he wanted Marvel previews.
Okay.
And I didn't want to waste any more time explaining to him where it was. Or, I mean, normally if someone was asking me, walk them to the shelf and show. But I'm like, no, not in this situation. I just want you to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you want me to waste this time getting you another free or not another, but an actual free thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to translate.
Yes.
No. And yes, we did have catalogs on that table last week because the week was so big. Right. You didn't have room on the new release wall where they normally are.
Yeah.
But the things that are in the don't miss these great issues rack on the counter have never been
correct.
free.
And yeah, even the catalogs, like the limit to how much I'm willing to help people find things in the store usually stops at helping them find the free things.
Yeah.
Because like even the catalogs, those are sales aids that are hopefully going to go to people who are going to see something inside and go, oh, I want to buy that. Not just someone who's going to take it because it's free. Like that's, even though we don't pay for those, that's not what they're for. We don't get them in the store just so someone can have something for free. We get them in the store so that people will see something in there and subscribe to it, buy it when it comes out, get excited about it and tell their friends.
The retailer in me,
not just have a free thing.
The retailer in me that has to unpack those boxes, open all those shrink wrap stacks of catalogs, dispose of the boxes and the plastic, put them on the shelf, rearrange them, move them around, will argue and say that costs me time.
True.
Thus, it's not free.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, we don't pay for it.
We do not pay for those. That is correct.
We also would be doing other things with our time than having to source those.
Yeah.
Like,
and look, if someone goes
I wish
to
those weren't shrink wrapped and banded.
Yeah.
They band them and shrink wrap them.
It's weird. If somebody goes to that section and gets free catalogs and that's all they get and they walk out the door, it's fine. I've seen people do it, whatever. But again, I'm not going to walk you over there and help you find them. Like they're free. That's not what I'm doing.
Or the people that walk in and say, what's free in here?
Yeah, boy, that happens more than I'd like. But again, I don't understand what a comic shop is.
You don't?
I do not.
You shouldn't be doing it.
Nope.
You should be fired.
This is America. Thank you.
I did tell him I was going to fire you.
Thank you for telling me it's America.
Yeah. Yes, I did tell him that you will be fired.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you believe it or not.
All I know is I was happy to have that conversation because he was one step closer to the door.
That's right. That's right.
You want to tell me I don't know what I'm doing and that I'm ruining your experience? Go right ahead. Just do it closer to the door.
Well, did you want to do your thing next?
You can do yours, Patrick.
Okay. Well, this is in keeping with the theme of comic book theft, whether it be
comic book theftery.
During store hours or after store hours. I was just going to point out that there was a situation that actually had a positive end result.
Mm-hmm.
This is from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. There was a store called Grand Adventure Comics and Gaming. They had two people break in the middle of the night, smash through the glass door, come in and clean out their entire Magic singles case, and got away with $8,000 worth of Magic the Gathering.
Who could have predicted that number?
It was weird, yeah. I believe that the way the story was told was as soon as the alarm went off, somebody from the store started looking at the security cameras. And the people that were doing it were wearing, one had a Michael Myers mask on, and one had a mask of a nun.
Michael Myers, Austin Powers, or the other one?
No, that's Mike Myers.
Oh, sorry. What movie was that where they did that? I can't remember.
They said the nun was from the town, but I just assumed it was like the nun from the Nun,
Maybe.
or any of those scary nun movies. But anyway, so they got a description of the car and the license plate, and the police found that car driving erratically, and when they were pulled over, the masks and all of the stolen cards
Amazing.
were visible on the seats.
Amazing.
So they knew they had the right people,
Uh-huh.
and they
That's
also
probable cause right there.
they also suspect these people from breaking into stores
The string
in
of them.
also Brentwood and Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
The perpetrators were 42 years old and 64 years old.
Wow.
So you're never too old to want to rip off
Apparently
comic
not.
shops and magic cards.
One of the interesting things that I remember from the story about that was that, I think it was this story, was that they knew that the robbers had cased the place because they had just moved where the magic cards were.
Yeah. They used to have 2 full glass cases.
And they went right to where the new one was.
Yeah.
So they knew that they had moved and they knew where they were.
I was more interested in the treats that they had put in the second glass case.
Yeah, I didn't hear about those.
Yeah. That's what they had used the other glass case for.
Tell me more about these treats.
They didn't say what it was.
Unreal.
They said snacks.
Ugh.
I said treats. Treats makes it more desirable, like you earned it.
Yeah.
Snack is
I
something
guess so.
anybody has.
Yeah, snack sounds like a failing of character, but a treat is like you earned this.
I believe you have a story about a comic shop in the news.
I do, yeah. A comic shop in so I'm going to start with the Beat's first listing, which I got this from comicsbeat.com, which has been covering it. Brooklyn's beloved Desert Island Comics fights on with a GoFundMe, specifically Desert Island Comics. Brooklyn's ultra hipster Williamsburg neighborhood. So someone who doesn't live in New York, I didn't realize Williamsburg was a part of Brooklyn, not a completely different place.
Oh, I do, because Anne Boleyn has played there in one of their live albums.
I think
and
I've heard
calls
that
it
one.
out and said, "Here we are, right in the heart of Brooklyn in Williamsburg."
Mhm.
And then they go on to say that they
Pretty snotty about hipsters.
thought that everybody was going to be too cool to see them.
Pretty
Like
snotty
they'd all
about
just be
hipsters.
standing there wearing bow ties, listening to the National,
Uh-huh.
and not going to an Anne Boleyn concert. But no, this is
With their
crazy.
arms folded, I think he also
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
Patrick, I've heard that live joke a few times.
I know. You have.
Anyway, so
This is crazy. You guys are crazy.
Gabe Fowler, the owner of Desert Island Comics in Brooklyn's ultra hipster Williamsburg neighborhood, posted basically saying that someone approached their landlord and offered almost double what they're paying in rent. They don't have a lease right now. The landlord says they have to match it or vacate by January 1st, 2025.
Which is fair. I mean, I know a lot of situations where the landlord would just say, "Great, you're in."
Yeah.
Like giving someone who doesn't have a lease the option,
Of meeting the price.
yeah, rather than just saying "get out."
Yeah. So first, Desert Island had basically said like, "Hey, this is it. We're probably done." They launched a GoFundMe with the basically like shortly thereafter, because of the outpouring of support from customers and fans and Comics Pros. Desert Island's like, "All right, we're going to do a fundraiser. We have until October 15th to resolve the details with our landlord." And the GoFundMe was looking for $79,200, which would help them afford the increase of $201,000 of the 3-year lease
For the
they would
duration
have
of the
to
lease.
sign.
Yeah. That makes sense if it's $70,000 times 3.
Yeah. So as of today, which was I think just a couple days after Heidi had posted this on Comics Beat, they're already at $88,000.
That's great.
So they've secured the future of Desert Island. Gabe Fowler did an interview with Heidi where he talked about how they didn't know if they were going to stay in the same spot, which is, what all this has been about is trying to stay in the spot that they love, that they've always been in. But knowing that they're only signing a 3-year lease and they might be in the same position in 3 years,
Yeah.
and knowing that trying to move means possibly getting a cheaper rent in a worse spot, and Gabe Fowler talked about this when he was doing a lot of the first couple days of stuff for Desert Island, going through this, they need to kind of be in a very visible touristy area.
Sure.
Their business model for people that are in Chicago is way more Quimby's than Challengers or Dark Tower. They are very much about events. They're very much about kind of foot traffic. And if they don't have that, if they're farther away from the heart of Brooklyn, then they are probably not going to be able to afford even their lowered rent. So they're still trying to figure that out as to what makes the most amount of sense. But Patrick, I was mentioning this to you because that is something that so many stores nowadays have to deal with, is basically getting priced out of their stores, especially if you're in an urban area. You run the risk of being gentrified right out of the neighborhood. And comic stores are not generally, for the shops that are in major metropolitan areas, are not nationwide brands with huge franchise money. They are barely subsisting as it is. And if you change the calculus even a little bit, and a little bit would not be doubling your rent, but if it went up even 25%, most stores would be like, I am unprofitable now, and I don't know what to do. Stores are barely hanging on in a lot of places with semi-fixed costs of infrastructure, let alone those costs skyrocketing overnight.
This just happened to Flying Colors and other Flying Colors comics and other cool stuff in Concord, California.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Field, the owner of Flying Colors and the godfather of Free Comic Book Day,
originator of Free Comic Book Day.
He had been in the same location since he opened for forever ago.
Yeah.
I mean, well before Challengers ever existed, decades.
Yeah.
And his rent was going up astronomically, and the current owners of his space had no interest in negotiating or even keeping him. So he had to make the decision, like, is this it? Is Flying Colors done? Or do we find somewhere else? And they did. They opened a few weeks ago in a new spot, but it's still in the same city, but it's like 11 miles from where they were.
It's crazy.
And that is a big distance. And if that can happen to Joe Field and Flying Colors, that could happen to everybody.
Yeah, I remember a thing a while ago. A comics retailer had wrote like tips on how to keep your business, and I think it was maybe in one of the Jim McLaughlin 3x3s that ran on ICV2, where he would talk to comic shop owners and kind of like 3 good things, 3 bad things that they've experienced in their career, and like basically using that as tips for how stores can think about longevity and their careers.
I did one of those.
And somebody, I want to say at one point, had basically said like, you should own your building.
Yeah. Oh, if at all possible.
Well, and that's the if at all possible part is a thing that's very easy to say when you're in a rural or suburban location, is you can maybe find a place, but like in the city, depending on what sort of space you're looking at, we can't buy the building that we're in.
Right.
The building that we're in is like
3 floors of condos and apartments.
Yeah, 3 floors with each of them like, I don't know, 4 or 5 units or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like probably a dozen residential units above us, plus
3 storefronts.
Yeah, 2 other businesses. Like, even when we, like, there's no version of this where our comic shop could make enough money where we could buy that building to secure our future. That is not possible.
If we could afford to buy that building, we wouldn't need to have a comic shop.
Yeah. We have looked at other, like, split commercial residential buildings. They're not as good. They're not as much space. You don't have nearly as much frontage.
There'd be so much compromise.
And it would be
Dad
like,
would live in a basement.
it would be literally $1 million. Like, you're talking about the loan you're getting from the bank is literally $1 million.
Yeah.
And there's no version of this. Even if you're renting out the units or whatever, however you're trying to do that, like, it kind of can't be done.
But you wouldn't. You'd want to live in those.
Right. And I mean, I know some stores have done that. They have managed that, and they've gotten really good deals, and they've been able to parlay different financial things in their lives that have made that happen. But for us, it's like out of the question, unless we move to a completely different neighborhood in the city, and that means starting from scratch. But that is a fear that almost every store has in Chicago is, what if a landlord comes in and they don't want me here?
Right. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it happens.
Or if they think they can get more and you can't afford to pay that.
And God knows New York is even worse. I mean, Chicago rents are, they're all over the place. Depends on what neighborhood you're in and what relationship you have with your landlord and what they're looking to do. But in New York, it has become apocalyptic. I mean, the amount of places that are just getting sold to other places that either don't rent them out or don't really care, are becoming part of like a realtor's portfolio. And it's like, there were businesses there. Like, That was it. Now there's not.
Well, I'd be lying if I said it was something I never thought about.
Yeah, and I mean it's certainly gratifying to hear that, you know, enough people cared about Desert Island that when Gabe Fowler posted about that, a lot of people chipped in financially to make that happen. I think Heidi had said that James Tynan, maybe? I'll have to look it up. I don't want to miscredit this person. Get a tutorial here that I'll get to the bottom. James Tynan put in $2,500.
Wow, that's great.
To keep Desert Island there.
Comic stores are important.
They are, and it's very cool that people rally around like that.
It's too bad that they need the rallying.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you hear about these things, and you think these stores are financially stable, you know? You think that it's just like, well, they've been there forever, they must know how to be there forever, and it's like,
I don't think that.
It would take, well, I'm saying people listening to this,
sure,
who are outside the industry, you know, these stores become fixtures in their neighborhoods, and you just think like, oh, sure. But it would take so little for almost any store to suddenly just be non-viable in whatever spot it's in. So little. I mean, I know stores that have needed to shut down because it's like, oh, there was too much road construction in front of their store for a while.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's it. Like, if people can't get there, if they can't park there for a little bit of time, they might just stop buying comics. Or, you know, cash flow issues where it's like, if that happens for a number of months, your store can only absorb so much of a hit.
I'd like to move on now and talk about upcoming store events.
Let's do it.
Because we've got some big ones a-coming and a brand new one announced this week. And for the rest of November, let's not talk about November, let's talk about October.
Okay, for the rest of October.
October, we've got 3 events over 2 days coming up. In fact, we have 2 different events featuring 3 different creators on the same day, which is Saturday, October 19th. First, we have Matthew Ehrman from the graphic novel Loving Ohio. He'll be in town specifically to sign this graphic novel with us, and that's pretty great. And he's been on the schedule for a while, even though somebody who may or may not be in this room put the wrong date on the flyer. At least all the event listings were correct.
I wonder who that was. We'll never know, sadly.
Luckily, the other person in this room was able to go through and correct all the flyers.
Mm-hmm.
We did have an email saying, hey, I noticed in your weekly email, actually it was an Instagram message, that the Matthew Ehrman date changed. Did it get pushed back? And I had to say, no, in fact, it was always that date. We just had the wrong date on the flyer.
Yep, sorry.
But on the same day, and this has just announced, we will have AJ Mendez and Amy Garcia.
The returning.
At Challengers for the second time. It's been just about 5 years. Right before Blue opened was the last time they signed.
Interesting.
And
Omen.
They have a brand new book coming out from Magma Comics called Day of the Dead Girl, #1. And as they explain it, you know, they've done comics about Glow, the Glorious Ladies of Wrestling.
Yep.
They've worked on Dungeons and Dragons. They've each done Wonder Woman stuff. But that is always them doing somebody else's thing. This is the first time they're getting to bring you, the reader, into the things that they're into.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a big deal because AJ Mendez was the former AJ Lee from the WWE, and Amy Garcia is a very popular actress from things such as Lucifer and Dexter and the George Lopez Show.
Had you watched Lucifer before
no,
the last time?
I watched Lucifer because of the signing.
Wow, okay. So it's going to be a different experience with Amy there this time.
Yeah, and also I didn't know she wasn't in the first season. As I was watching
you suffered through it.
Well, I told her I was going to watch it because, you know, I got to meet her and she was great.
Sure.
And then I messaged her and said, "You're not in this." And
Which
she's
one
like,
are
"Oh
you?
yeah,
Are you the devil?"
I don't come into the second season. Sorry. Yeah. So they'll be signing the event exclusive cover to Day of the Dead Girl #1 because Day of the Dead Girl won't officially be out yet. So we'll have the event exclusive cover. Look. There's going to be a lot of rules to this event. We're not going to go through them right now. They're on our website. If you go to challengerscomics.com, on the event page, under what's the far right tab on the top?
I think it's info.
Click info, then go to events. Or it's also on our Facebook page. There's rules, there's regulations. Long story short, it's $20 for this book. You get a signature from each of them on the book itself, and then you get 1 extra signature from each of them total. It doesn't matter if you buy 5 copies of the book, you only get the total of 4 signatures. We only have them for 2 hours. They're not posing for photographs. You can take a selfie in front of their table, but they're not going to stop. They're not going to get up and pose for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to take it yourself. We don't have a dedicated photographer.
Yes.
The line is there's probably going to be too many people there for the time given. So we're going to have to cap the line. We may even have to cap the line before the event starts, because I know people are going to start showing up hours in advance.
Yeah, the line is going to be forming early. So even though we have a posted time for the event, I would not recommend people get there at the time as posted.
Yeah.
That's when they're going to start signing. I would recommend you get there earlier.
Yeah. All the information is on the task. I meant on the flyer. I said task on purpose because that's what they would say in Taskmaster.
Oh, okay.
All the information is on the task.
I could not figure out why you said
Sorry. I'm always going to say that, though, just FYI. We're not bending the rules. We have to staff up for this. We have to completely dismantle sidekicks, and we'll probably not be able to sell a book. My plan is to have sidekicks, have it set up already by Saturday morning, and about 2:00, kick people out of sidekicks and put up the
velvet rope.
The velvet rope, and then we're going to let people come in. Hopefully, it's not pouring rain that day because line is going to be outside.
Yeah.
Just to keep the flow going, it's going to be a lot like Free Comic Book Day in that regard.
Yeah.
We are going to be very specific to the rules. We want to make sure that the creators are treated with respect. We want to make sure everybody in line is treated with respect, that everybody has a good time, but everybody the same time. We're not going to be giving preferential treatment to anybody. We've already had requests for, hey, how can I guarantee a spot in line? You can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And there's nothing we can do. We promise to play this by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very next Saturday, which would be October 26th, we have the returning Jeffrey Brown. It's been well over a decade since Jeffrey Brown has been at the shop. He's got a brand new book, which is hilarious. It's Kids Are Still Weird. It's observations of being a parent.
Yep, and it'll be on shelves this coming Wednesday, which is the 16th?
It's funny that that's the case because we ordered
16th.
half our books from Diamond and half our books from Lunar.
Mm-hmm.
We're only getting the Diamond one this time. Yeah.
Maybe we'll be getting
Well,
the Lunar
interesting.
ones the week afterwards, which is still in enough time, but still.
But Jeffrey Brown the early part of his career was all autobiographical, coming of age, college romance type stuff.
Clumsy.
Exactly. But now he's been doing all of those great Star Wars kids books, the Star Wars adventure stuff with,
Darth Vader and Son.
Yeah. And he's got Lucy and
Andy?
his cave person book. He's got his outer space series, and this is the second volume of his Kids Are Weird stuff. So he's got a ton of stuff. This is a great family event, and our last Jeffrey Brown signing, which was an Incredible Changebots 2 reading, was one of our worst turnouts.
Yeah.
For what was Incredible Changebots 2 is such a good book.
Yeah.
Such a funny book. I don't even like Transformers, and I loved that book.
It's so good.
So it'd be great if people came to meet Jeffrey Brown because he's a local treasure.
Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah.
People would be well advised to come out and meet him.
And then in November, on a date that I can't remember, which is a Saturday, and we're staying open later for it. You want to look it up while I'm talking?
Sure.
We have a stop on the Feral World Tour.
Oh, that one.
Where we have Tony Fleece and Tone Rodriguez, both from Feral, and Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley, both from Local Man. All of them, all 4 of those creators, are signing from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. on Saturday, November, you can just say 16th.
I was going to let you do it.
Okay.
November 16th.
Yeah, thanks. I thought it was the 16th, but, oh no, the other one was the 19th. That's why. Yeah, Saturday the 16th, from 4 to 6. They've all done a ton of stuff. Tony's also, he'll have Stray Dogs, and Tone worked on some of the Stray Dog stuff, and we'll have all the Local Man stuff, like I said, but also Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
And the Revival Compendium is going to be out by then for Tim Seeley, and Tony and Tim are also writing that current Venomous Wolverine series. That's a big deal because this is a tour, and they're driving up, and we had to petition to be a tour stop.
Oh wow!
So that it'd be helpful if people came to that and made it worth their while
I'll say.
and our while for the financial buy-in. And then the whole weekend of Thanksgiving, we have a massive 50% off back issues, incentive, and ratio variants as well.
Yeah.
So all of our back issues are going to be, what, 99 cents? A dollar?
Half off.
Half off. But
99 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be a dollar.
They could be.
It's not, I think we advertised 99. No, we just said half off. I don't know. 99 cents. And all the ratio incentive variants, including the ones that are available that week. That's what we did last year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it's just easier to turn them all.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
So, and then that's going to be on the website as well for the ratio incentive variants.
Absolutely.
And this year, which we didn't have last year, we have boxes full of incentive
Oh,
variants.
we have so many more. Yeah.
Half off.
Oh, man.
So that takes us through November. We also already have something on Saturday, December 7th. And actually, it is a triple event day.
Ooh.
It's 3 different events on the same day, but we'll talk about that later.
Neat.
We have enough events, but specifically Matthew Ehrman, AJ Mendez, Amy Garcia, all on the 19th of this month. Jeffrey Brown on the 26th of this month. And then Tony Tim on the 16th of November.
Nice.
Yeah. So plenty of events coming up. And we just had Ryan Clater over the weekend. And yeah, that kind of stuff. I actually had one more topic, and I thought it was going to be a bigger topic, but we're already over an hour.
Oof.
So I don't know if we want to save it or just jump into it now, because it's me asking you a specific question. You want me to give you the question now and you want to give your answer next week? Or do you want to decide how big of a...
Yeah, let me hear what the question is.
Okay.
First.
The question is...
In my head, I'm like, this many more minutes is how long this podcast is.
Okay.
Let's see what this question is.
As someone who sells comics, owns a comic book shop, and despite what the general public has unanimously agreed on, you do know what you're doing and should be running a comic shop.
Debatable.
What do you think in 2024 is the desired format for a creator to publish comic book work in? And by that I mean...
By desired, you mean what would I prefer somebody release?
Yes.
Okay. Because like the problem with a question like that is like, who is best being served by it? Like,
right. Okay. So that's part of the.
Yeah.
That's why the answer could be huge. But specifically, so the listener knows what I mean. I'm talking single issues, 20-page single issues, 6-issue miniseries, 5-issue miniseries, or standalone graphic novel.
I would probably say that at least for our part of the market, a single issue series is probably going to do better than a graphic novel. It really depends on the creative team, but I'm thinking like, okay, so Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans are doing a new graphic novel that I think we've already placed our orders for. And I think of that and I think, okay, it's like $25 to $30. It accounts for maybe 5 to 6 issues of storytelling. So like it would be $20 to $30 if it were single comics. But would I sell more of the single comics than I did of the graphic novel? And it's like, I probably would, yeah. So if the price is the same, and that's the thing is like, I don't know what the cost per unit is for a graphic novel versus the cost per unit. And I'm talking at the creator level for a 6-issue series.
I'm going to assume the cost per unit for the graphic novel is less than the combined 5 or 6 issue total.
Yeah, because you have to turn on the printing presses 6 different times,
right.
And that's where a lot of your money goes. But there's also like, that's something where we would maybe order for that graphic novel. I think we're probably like 20 to 30 copies, which for original graphic novel at Challengers is a lot.
That's huge.
Usually what we order for like the Brubaker Phillips stuff is around 40 copies.
40 to 60, yeah.
Yeah, we've gone 60, and 60 can sometimes take a while to sell through, so 40 is kind of what we're doing more often. But like for a Kieran Gill and Stephanie Hans thing, like something like Die, like would we sell 30 to 40 copies on average across the entire 6-issue run? Like, I think we probably would. We probably sell more of issue 1 and less of issue 6.
Right.
But like, we would sell more than the as an average than the number of copies of a graphic novel we would order for the same material. And more than that, like I think there's a lot of people that would get a 6-issue series that would look at the price tag on a graphic novel and say no thanks. Even though they would spend that over 6 months, they'd be spending it over 6 months.
They're not
going to
look
purchase.
at it and think, "Oh, I'm going to spend this much for this whole series."
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of fans of those creators, a graphic novel is for the more hardcore fans, unless it breaks out and becomes a thing that like everyone in the industry is talking about. At which point, even if you were doing that as a comic, it would still be more sales.
Sure.
Like, you know, Saga versus My Favorite Thing is Monsters. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're it's apples and oranges as far as the storytelling, but when you're talking about breaking out of regular comic readers into the larger world, I don't know that it, you know, the comic sales were still happening for Saga even before the trades were becoming a huge phenomenon.
Okay, so what if My Favorite Thing is Monsters was serialized first?
Oh, that absolutely would not have worked. I mean, like anything Fantagraphics, if they were doing it as a comics format, it's like your audience doesn't care. So I don't know if it maybe gets more at the heart of what is the material and how do the people who consume.
I honestly believe that is
like,
a major
the
factor
genre,
in it.
more or less.
But there's also nothing stopping you from taking those single issues and then putting out a collection afterwards as well.
Right.
So the answer to that is both.
Yeah,
But if you had to choose,
I don't know that it would have hurt My Favorite Thing is Monsters to have been serialized as a comic and then become a graphic novel, because then when they became a graphic novel, NPR would go, "Hey, there's this thing."
It's only in
to
the
most people, they
rarest,
would know about it.
dumbest cases where a publisher will take a released graphic novel and then split it up in single issues years after it came out,
Yeah.
like they're doing with Primer and Batman, Robin, and Howard, another Jeffrey Brown property from DC.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a solid answer I could ever give to something like what is the best format to release something
Well,
in.
here's another example. Specifically, Dark Horse recently was trying to launch a new superhero universe, a horror superhero universe with Cullen Bunn and Danny Licorice.
Beyond Mortal?
Yeah. And they did it as a hardcover graphic novel first.
Was it? We got it as a softcover.
Was it softcover?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought in my head it was hardcover. Okay, but they did it as a standalone graphic novel.
Yep.
When we ordered 2.
Yeah, it did not sell.
If it was a 6-issue miniseries, we would have ordered more than 2's worth of that miniseries.
Yeah, and I think for something like that, we probably would order like 10 copies, depending on pre-orders. And I think
with no pre-orders, we'd order 10 copies.
Yeah.
It's Cullen Bunn, Stanley Looker. They've worked together before. On
But
that
also,
Image
I
horror
know
book.
that for a book like that, it's a single issue thing. We could probably get at least 5 people to try it out.
Yeah.
Just based on it being a new #1 and those creators, at least 5 people in our store would sample that. But when it's an original graphic novel, we did not have 5 people willing to sample that. I don't think we even had to. Like, they don't know what it is. It's like, I don't know, $20 probably. And that's more than people will want to pay to sample something out. $5 is kind of the upper limit of what our customers will spend to sample something they don't know anything about. And like, you could argue that like, well, we could probably try and sell it to people, but like we've talked about many times in the past, there's only so much stuff we can hand sell at one time.
Right.
And that was not the book that we picked to hand sell.
And as much as I hate to admit it, especially to any creators who may be listening, at any given week, there's a book bigger than yours that we have to focus on.
Yep.
A lot of books fell to the wayside this week for our pitching of Absolute Batman, because if that lands, that's an ongoing book.
Yep.
And we're not saying that we're so bottom line cutthroat that all we're going to do is recommend the book that gets us the biggest financial gain, because there's plenty of times we spend all of our bandwidth on a quirky book we love, like I Heart Skullcrusher,
Right. But
which is not raking in money for us.
No, but the key thing, though, in those circumstances is that we are more apt to push something that has a recurring release schedule to it, because one of the most important things is we want people coming back to the store.
Consistency. Give them
Yeah.
a reason to come back in.
If I sell you a graphic novel, which I will, I sell a lot of graphic novels,
Yeah.
and a lot of people want that format, and I don't blame them. That means I've made a sale. But if I can sell you on Absolute Batman, I Heart Skullcrusher, Birds of Prey, anything, even a miniseries, that means you're going to come in at least one more time to get the next issue to find out how the story develops. And certainly an ongoing series is better for us because it means you're going to come in 6 to 12 times a year, depending on how often your ongoing series releases. Right. And that's what
that's the dream. We want people to come back in for number 2s.
Number 2s.
Thank you. I paused specifically for that. Which, as we've talked about before on this podcast, is a difficult thing to do to get people to come back.
Sure.
Using, again, I Heart Skull Crusher #1 as the example.
Yeah, I think plenty of times I've given the exact opposite advice, where it's like, the problem with selling an issue 1 is that I don't know if you're going to come back for 2, but if I sell you a graphic novel, I made $20 right now. So like, that is the counter argument, and I've used it in the past. But the ideal, the everything working in the market correctly version is you buy a chapter this month, and then you buy a chapter next month, and you buy a chapter the month after that, and after that. And every time you come in to get a new chapter of that book, you also maybe see something else. So now the month after that, you're buying 2 different chapters of 2 different series. And the month after that, 3 different chapters of 3 different series, and so on. That is the market that existed for decades that now kind of doesn't anymore. But that is still the ideal that old people like you and I cling to, is like, maybe we can find some way to get that back. And here's the thing. I don't think it's gone forever, because I have people coming in fairly regularly who tell me they just got into comics in the last couple years.
Yeah.
So looking forward to new issues and trying new series is something that's brand new for them, and they like doing it. So it's not like this is some like old head behavior that no one knows how to interact with anymore. This is like people that are half my age who are experiencing the same thing I did when I was their age. Getting excited about series and getting excited about comic books, single issue comic books. So that shit can still work. I know it can.
So the ultimate answer is, it's not one size fits all.
Nope.
It's a case by case basis. It matters on the creators. It matters on what the material is. But in an ideal world, it's, for us, single issues first and then collection later.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, if I was to boil it down to one thing, my suggestion for any American creator would be, do it as a manga made by a Japanese creator, if at all possible.
Can you imagine Brubaker and Phillips books done that way?
I can't.
Maybe we should try.
Maybe.
Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.